Pecha Kucha 255, considering shonen manga. So shonen manga is manga aimed at teenage boys, typically full of action, and usually becomes quite formulaic. I've always had it on my bucket list to do a shonen manga book, and by book I mean a single trade paperback. Try it out, see how I feel. I'm thinking now's the time. So I've got some ideas I've had a long time, and I'm trying to make them more shonen manga. So what I'm looking for is examples of the cliches, the tropes. Some of them I want to play straight, some of them I think are ridiculous and I want to turn on their head. But I got to make sure that this thing still works, and I also need to actually figure out the art style. Naruto is one of the better shonen mangas out there, so I had to look at some imagery of the actual main character Naruto, because the main character is kind of important when you're doing this thing, because it's his journey. It's always a boy, unless it isn't. And I'm going to have to draw my main character a lot. And, Naruto goes through a lot of aging and growing as a character. His character design and his aesthetic, his personality, the manga lives and dies by it along with other things. And everybody thinks manga is simple, but this one little line I've circled under the eye, which is to kind of show the bottom of his eyelid. These are the little things that manga pages are full of. You think it's simple, but every line is meticulously placed, although not necessarily meticulously made. And while I was thinking about getting more reference to figure out more stuff, I kind of stumbled across the fact I have a collection of shonen manga that was bought for me from a library. It was on clearance like a decade ago, and I don't even think I read all of them, and Naruto was one of those books. I can't talk about this in any broad sense, but I've read 5 books. What I took away from Naruto is that it has the least amount of contrast. A lot of the artwork is white, but it's still easy to read. These books aren't that big. They're about A5, but it's kind of between A5 A4. Readability is super important because you want people to follow this stuff without having to think too hard. Speaking of having to think too hard, Trigun Maximum, which I've never heard of and never will, I guess, was the hardest of the 5 to follow, both in terms of art and story. It's the 3rd in the series, and it didn't really care, and I didn't really care what was going on. There's some guy, and there's this other guy, and they shoot a lot of people, and that's the plot. And then it might be a science fiction thing. I can't really I can't really say much about it. Last Fantasy is it's like a manga set in a Final Fantasy type video game world where the main character is a mage, and I guess he goes on adventures or something. And this book, which is apparently the 4th in the series, there's a zombie apocalypse in the city he's in, and it ends on a cliffhanger. It's got the most aesthetically unappealing manga characters in this in the books I read. It's got a very good grayscale contrast. A lot of stuff seems to be happening at night. I wouldn't read it if I had to go looking for it, but it's not bad. Each of these books is teaching me something, and they're also teaching me by me consuming all of them in rapid succession. Bleach, like Naruto, you've heard of. I was lucky in that this is the first book. This is the first book of Bleach, so it actually introduces the premise and the main characters from the start. It's one of the stronger books because it hits the ground running with a lot of comedy and a lot of action and an intriguing premise and world. It's still got its cliches, like, the main character has this untapped, incredible potential, much like Naruto and I guess Son Goku. That is the reason he's always going to be making the most growth and saving the day. But excellent book, I think, of the 5. One of the strongest. One of the weakest. Marchen Awakens Romance is what that stands for. Why? What does it mean? I don't know. It sounds cool. That's probably why the guy called it that. This one seems pretty flimsy. Some kid is he's having dreams that he's a hero in a world that needs saving. It's just like video game manga tropes. And it's probably the most simplistically drawn and the most simplistically told. it's not bad, but it's really more useful for me because mine is going to be like this, not so great. So I also spent this week trying to figure out how to redesign my characters to make them more like their shonen manga characters, because yeah, these were ideas I had a long time ago, and I haven't figured out anything in concrete really that isn't up to debate that I can change. I know who I think the cast are, but they don't necessarily have to have the roles I've envisaged. They almost all need redesigns, while I try to internalize an art style as well as build the world. There's a lot going on, and it's all kind of going on. I'm bouncing a lot of things around. And I'm just trying to spend the next few weeks thinking about it. Like something that just occurred to me from reading all these manga books. I need more people of the same age group surrounding my main character, and there's a lot of ridiculous cliches I can employ to ensure that there are little boys everywhere that may or may not actually be little boys. It's a headfuck, but it's interesting because it's a set of rules with which I can work within and work around. And I just thought, let me just try and draw some random dude in some kind of style, and it kind of turned into a manga image almost by accident. Brush type might have had something to do with that, using like a mechanical pencil type of brush. And I also was speaking to the Mystic more. We're going to kind of get some daily sketching going on, I think, next month. I never finished the last one that was up there. This picture of Joe Higashi's been sitting on that Discord server for a year, and I decided, it's time to look into this. And I really think what I want going forward with both the manga and the daily sketch stuff is this sense of accountability, responsibility, personal growth, and truth, transparency, and understanding of what I am capable of and what I'm not. And then consciously acting to improve across the board. So I want to have a book in my hand, and just from reading those manga books this week, I'm like, okay, I hadn't thought about it being that size. Those books are very small. So I'll have to think about that when I build my images and think about how much text I put per panel. So this is great. This is learning. This is growth. I certainly need this. I don't need to be playing more Mass Effect, fun though it may be. So that brings us to the end of Pecha Kucha 255. Expect a leaning towards shonen manga for a while. We'll see how dense it is, but yeah. I will see you next time.